Okay, there we go. Good morning. This is Kelly Daubach, executive business coach and entrepreneur for corporate executives turned business owner. I'm here this morning with Lisa Anne Holt, and we are kicking off our first of 4-part series for the masterclass and helping define the value of contract work and really help to navigate the independent workforce that is really upon us in the new age working economy. I am both a certified professional coach as well as a registered dietitian and corporate executive business development expert. I have spent 16 years in healthcare and have had a resume that has really been spearheaded in and around building businesses from scratch. So now I've taken that to the entrepreneur and business owner landscape, and I'm excited about the positioning and the timing of all things that are coming together. I met my good friend and colleague now, Lisa Anne Holt, through one of our powerful networking engagements, and we've really just hit it off both personally as well as professionally, and would love for Lisa to introduce herself and her role.
Sure. So as Kelly said, I'm Lisa Anne Holt. I am a registered nurse and I have a master's degree in nursing informatics. And I am the CEO of Lisa Anne Holt Consulting, which sounds very, very pretentious to have my whole name and CEO there. But really, as a sole entrepreneur, that is my role. Of course, my role, as we will talk about later in some of our sessions, our roles can be very varied in the role of an independent contractor. I bring 32 plus years of healthcare executive experience. After my first year as a bedside nurse, I was thrust into management and never left, and climbed into senior leadership and spent a lot of time in the C-suite, working mostly as an operational transformative change agent. That tended to be my role, and embrace that. And as Kelly said in her role, now I'm bringing that into my entrepreneurial life. So I'm so excited that we're having this talk.
Yes. Thanks, Lisa. And I think first and kind of foremost, we want to talk a little bit about what does it all mean, right? There's so many different terms out there for what our employment options are. And the reality is that none of this is new, but it is coming forefront. This used to be the minority of the workforce. And while it is not yet the majority, it is expected to climb to capture nearly 50% of the workforce economy over the next 5 years. Right. So perhaps you can share a little bit of tidbit between, what these terms mean, how you've had some experience in your own business with each of these components.
Sure. So when I was a fairly young nurse, just to point out that none of this is new, I worked as a per diem home health nurse. So back in the day, we were not hired as full-time nurses. The model at that time was that home health nurses would be hired per diem, which means you work by the shift or by the visit or by the occasion. And literally it means by day. Though that day could have been a 2-hour visit, it could have been a 4-hour, 8-hour, 12-hour shift. I did a lot of 12-hour shifts. And that also meant that I didn't work exclusively for any one employer. So I had multiple employers. Often, of course, I date myself, but back in the day, back before EMRs, back before everything was computerized, I would pull up into a driveway, reach over to my glove compartment of my Buick Electra, 1977 Buick Electra. It was a hot car, I can tell you. But it had a huge glove compartment, which was good because I worked for about 5 or 6 different agencies. I would open that up, I would pull out the right paperwork, double check my calendar. Yep, I'm the nurse for this agency at this moment. Stick on my name badge, get my paperwork, go see my patient. And the patient never really knew the difference. That was just how things were. So we're seeing that, that trend kind of starting to come full circle. But in home health and in other industries, per diem started being phased out as there was outcry that people who worked per diem didn't have a guaranteed salary. They didn't have benefits. And so the movement shifted and changed. And if anybody else is, I know Kelly's in healthcare, if anyone else out there is also in healthcare, you know, the one constant about healthcare is that nothing is ever constant. It's always changing. So that is what happened. There was a big shift out of working per diem into working full-time positions. And then we've probably heard the term freelance in different industries. So a freelance photographer, for example, freelance writer, those creative types tended over the years to be called freelancers. Well, really, anybody who works as an independent contractor can be working freelance. They all have the same meaning. So an independent contractor, as I just mentioned, basically means the same thing. You're independent and you're working for yourself, or you're working for clients that are hiring you either by the day, by the job, etc. And then some of the more fun terms lately have been solopreneurs or nurse entrepreneurs or RN entrepreneurs or any type of preneur. I've seen mompreneurs.
Mompreneurs. I like it.
What else have you seen out there, Kelly?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you share like the type of preneur. That is what I've seen is like when you move from independent freelancer per diem, right? You are the supply in the market for someone's demand. But when you move to more of the solopreneur, perhaps like the corporation, you become more of the product or service, and you're producing the supply or demand. So kind of in a marketing term, that's where you come out with your way, with your service, with your perhaps, product, or rather than changing what you do and how you do it based on your employer. Right. So that's kind of one. And when you said mompreneur, I'm like, well, clearly that person is still an independent, contractor to itself or to its clients, but they have a service that is actually meeting a demand in the marketplace. So, yeah. And it can be different phases of your career, different aspects of all of these. And I think, the tax and liability component of it is what kind of creates a lot of these different terms and different structures as well. But that's definitely why we should confer with experts, tax accountants, lawyers, and financial advisors when you're starting your business, because there are different tax benefits to the different phases, whether you're still working full-time, you're working part-time, whether you're taking a salary, whether you have shareholders or you have a board of directors. So all those different components, but at the end of the day, I think Lisa and I are on the same page, is that it's, you are your own boss, and how you structure that is ultimately up to you. Yeah.
Do you want me to take a few seconds just to talk about the difference between a 1099 and a W-2? Not
sure.
Going into detail.
Sure.
So I know a lot of people, as they're starting their own business, are a little bit confused about those designations. So when you're an employee, like for example, when I used to work for a hospital, they were my boss and they were responsible to provide me with my health benefits, other types of benefits as well. And they paid the employer portion of my Social Security and my Medicare tax. And at the end of the year, I would receive a W-2 form from them showing what taxes I had paid, what they had contributed, and obviously what my salary was. So when you work as a 1099 or you work for yourself, and that could be either as under an LLC, it could be as a sole entrepreneur, working just purely under your own Social Security number. Any of those designations where I go out and I have a client who pays me for my on-demand service will give me a 1099 at the end of the year. And a big major difference is that I'm responsible for my own taxes. But again, we're not going to go into tax detail, but we would definitely recommend you consult with an expert on that. But there are pros and cons to everything. You just have to kind of figure out your way through it, and we're here to help answer any questions.
Yes.
We'll guide you to a much more appropriate professional.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thanks, Lisa. So moving to the terms great resignation or the great reshuffling. Do you know when it changed? Because I woke up one day and all of a sudden, like, the hashtags and the titles were moving to the great reshuffling, and it kind of makes sense, right? Because to me, it's like the great resignation was just a period of unwinding and kind of stepping back. And now people are more active in the market, right? They're figuring out where their next move is, which to me is kind of more of a reshuffle rather than resignation. But you know, as female leaders, especially in healthcare, where we have spent so much time and had so much impact and really grown in leadership. I did read yesterday, I think it was, in a Forbes article that there are 1 million less female leaders in the workforce over the past 2 years. And that's primarily because of, you know, the household responsibilities. And it's not to say that it was only women by any means, but it just goes to show that, like, there's a lot of women out there that are looking to for their next move. And the great reshuffling to me is really about opportunity. So I tell people, like, why is now the right time? There will likely never be as much opportunity to make career leaps or career demands in our workforce lifetime, I believe, than there is right now. Because of the demand moving to the employee, the opportunity to name your price, name your location, name your work structure is just at peak. And that's only going to continue to go down as more people enter this market. And so those that are acting quickly are those that have the opportunity to lock in with certain organizations. And those organizations are looking for the innovation and new ideas for people that are going to work, which is resulting in really a win-win. Because at the end of the day, employers have a responsibility to shareholders to create a profit. And whether, you know, whether that means hiring someone with or without benefits or where they work is going to ultimately become kind of the pinnacle of the decision. But they are going to source talent, period. They're going to source talent.
Right.
All right, Lisa, you want to share your perspective on this really interesting survey that you did recently?
Yeah, so we've heard a lot about the gig economy over the last several years. I mean, it wasn't just the pandemic that brought the gig economy about. It has always been there in some way, shape, or form, but has really grown over the years, with Uber being a great example of on-demand working, or Diner Dash, or DoorDash, or Uber Eats, et cetera, et cetera. But what was kind of surprising is that as we saw in the middle of the pandemic, the great resignation really starting to start as people were leaving the healthcare industry. I found it very interesting that suddenly healthcare and gig started coming together and being put in the same sentence. Where as a healthcare professional, I never really thought of myself as a gig worker, even when I was working per diem. That just wasn't the term used. But like we said back in the beginning, freelance, independent contractor, solopreneur, per diem, they really all mean the same thing: on-demand labor. So I did this survey. This is a LinkedIn survey, a LinkedIn poll that I did back in late February. So not that long ago. This is pretty fresh data. And I was telling in my post associated with the poll that about my experience working as a per diem nurse way back when, and wondering how many other people out there are thinking that it would be okay to leave a guaranteed salary employment and become your own independent gig worker, whether that's an ELI-MP or a PA, or we know MDs and DOs work as locums. That's another word for on-demand contract labor. If your annual income is about the same. And the reason I asked it that way is because I think there's a big misconception that if you don't have a guaranteed paycheck, then you're not going to be able to make ends meet. Well, I can tell you, I work as an independent gig worker myself. I have clients that I bill for my services, and I am compensated that way. My annual income is about the same as it was back when I was working in the C-suite of a health system. It's just a different perspective. But anyway, so I did this poll, and I posted this in multiple healthcare groups on LinkedIn. So that those are the groups that targeted. I was looking for healthcare workers. And I was blown away by the response rate. I mean, you look at this, this was a 1-week poll that I put up. That's kind of a lot of people that were willing to share. But you see that yes or maybe, there's almost 400 people. So, you know, what, 3/4 of this group, or 2/3, somewhere in there, but the overwhelming majority say, yeah, it's time to start thinking about that. But then the next questions are, well, you know, can I do that? How do I do that? Who's going to help me do that? I don't know all the answers. And, you know, that's why we wanted to have this masterclass series, to be able to start giving some support and direction to people who are contemplating doing exactly what we're doing.
Perfect. And I agree. I have a lot of experience on the LinkedIn polls, articles, posts, all of that. That is a great experience, which only further proves, you know, the articles that we read and the statistics. Well, yeah. So considering what your value, what's important to you. So we're going to get in next week into kind of once you identify your value and what you want to do, you know, kind of first steps to creating either a LinkedIn profile or a resume that highlights this, and, you know, where to start looking. But before you go there, you really have to understand what you enjoy doing and what you're passionate about and what you're really looking for. You know, the job descriptions over the course of the last 5 to 10 years have gone like this, like the climbing towards the top of the funnel. And this shift is going to cause the job, I'm like trying to make this work, going to cause the job descriptions to go like this. And what's happening is people are going to have the opportunity to source superior talent, expert level talent, when they have either a project or kicking off a program, or perhaps focusing on a particular component, right? If you're on this call, you've probably sat in either C-suite level meetings or board of director level meetings. You have at the very beginning of the year, both an annualized budget as well as annualized projects to kick off those budgets. It's not just willy-nilly, we go to work every day. It's this is the program that's going to meet this budget by this timeline, et cetera. And they can look at a hierarchy of open positions, or now they have the opportunity to go out and hire an expert that has built chronic care management programs, that has built patient prescription compliance programs, that has built, you know, engagement platforms. If those are the 3 components, they now have the opportunity to go out and source that particular talent to hit that KPI in that program. So that's what the opportunity really is. And we're not meant to be a jack of all trades and net masters of none. It is absolutely exhausting to try and be everything to everyone. And that is not what's ultimately going to bring loyalty. And so it's interesting when you think loyalty in an independent contractor basis, you could actually have as much, if not more loyalty, if there is this, you know, win-win scenario. So I go back to, you know, impact businesses, and it's my mission to really focus and help impact businesses, because I believe that people have a certain number or certain, you know, being and purpose to their life. And it's not everything. And so if we can focus on taking our place and using our gifts that God gave us to make an impact in this world, And that's what we're supposed to do. And that's where we enjoy. So the resistance goes down and the joy goes up. So there's someone, that's here with us live, or Lisa, when you think about passion and value, that component of your job description that you could do, or the participants on the call, what would be some of those responsibilities that would help you jump out of bed in the morning?
Well, for me, I absolutely love the new exciting opportunity out there. So for me, I love helping startups get their programs off the ground. I love helping with individual projects so I can get really immersed and really in deep. And I love seeing the success at the end. I think we all do. For me, it's so satisfying that if I help, for example, if I help a behavioral health organization write a funding proposal and they get funded, and that means they can do really cool things in their community, that's just the best. And this is the way I can still be a nurse. I'm always a nurse, even if I'm not at the bedside, because I can still impact communities. I can impact healthcare. One of my clients is Health Gig Jobs, which is a great, innovative, brand new startup platform that helps health professionals do exactly what we're talking about, get them connected to health businesses looking for their expertise. And the really cool thing about them at Health Gig Jobs, you can name your own price. It's kind of like the Priceline meets Uber meets healthcare, meets Match.com.
Yeah.
Get all of the components going in the right direction. That really, really feeds my enthusiasm, as you can tell.
Yes.
So let's hear from somebody else before I just.
Yes. Well, I'm watching the chat to see if anyone wants to share, but I too am in business development innovation. And like I said, really, really, really driven in business growth. And so, right, that's really been kind of, like I said, my skill set. That's one of my gifts, is to build businesses from scratch. And now, who I serve and how I do that is really kind of the infrastructure I work within. But it is the ability to visualize, conceptualize, and build empires to impact the world.
I think another thing to add to that too, Kelly, is that we get to pick our clients, right?
Yeah.
That makes such a difference. I have turned down clients where I don't,
Absolutely.
if I don't feel that I can really meet their needs because maybe our values don't align. That's okay for me to say no and say, you know what, let me see if I can, point you in a different direction. I may not be a good fit for somebody. They may not be a good fit for me, but I can make that decision. And I really love having that ability as an independent contractor.
I agree. And it is an interview process on both sides.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And should really be, like you said, if we're really intentionally aligning with our values, then we want to work with people that are going to create the win-win, not necessarily because, you're overcommitted to that need or that demand.
Right.
Great. All right, Lisa. Well, I think that was an excellent first of 4 series masterclass on navigating the independent workforce. We really wanted to hit home the demand and the shift. And I think that, the literature, as well as the research, as well as the surveys and statistics continue to support that this is moving. I think that those that, like I said, act more quickly than others are going to have the lion's share of opportunities in the market. And I think that there will be a time where there are people that are in the full-time employer role and sitting next to someone in a per diem role. And that's going to be across boardrooms. It's going to be across supply chains. It's going to be across labor force. So it's really about you deciding and leaning into it. And there is no wrong way. I always say, like, just make your decision and put your stake in the ground, and then everything else will fall into place. But when we don't stand in an area or we stand in an area of indecision, that's where the fear and anxiety tends to boil up.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, this has been really fun, Kelly. Can't wait till next week.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'll share the recording as well as Lisa, the healthgigs.com. If there's something of more interest to learn about that, where should the participants find information?
Well, you can find us on LinkedIn. And again, it's Health Gig Jobs, or at the website www.healthgigjobs.com. And there's a bunch of really great information out there, and we'd be really happy to answer any questions for you.
All right. Everyone go out and have a killer Tuesday.
Can't believe it's already Tuesday.